Hi, welcome to Gospel with Greg, and in this video we are going to talk about trusting in God. I'm going to explore what the scripture says about trusting in God, why we should, and what happens when we do. It's very important to trust in God. It's a very foundational thing that allows us to flourish in other ways. Sometimes we have to endure trials and we don't know exactly why the reason for that is, but God is all-knowing and He won't lead us astray, and there's always a reason for it. So I'm going to start off in Isaiah chapter 26 verse 4. It says, "Trust ye in the Lord forever, for in the Lord Jehovah is everlasting strength." So we should trust in God and trust Him to handle our problems, because ultimately He knows how to handle them more than anyone else does. And I'm going to give an example of why we should trust in God. And it may come from some scripture that you might not expect given this topic. And that is in Leviticus chapter 11. And this is where the food restrictions were given for the Israelites in the Old Testament. We know maybe some of the big ones, like they couldn't eat pork, and they wouldn't have exactly known why they couldn't eat this or that, but there were reasons for why they couldn't eat what they couldn't eat. And a specific example is in Leviticus chapter 11, verse 19. And this is listing some things that the Israelites were not allowed to eat. "And the stork, and the heron after her kind, and the lapwing, and the bat." So, from that I'm going to use the specific example of bats, that they couldn't eat those. I did some research on the risks and the effects of eating bats, and overall, eating something like a bat can make you very sick and pass diseases to people. And so God telling the Israelites that they couldn't eat them, as well as other harmful things, would keep them from getting sick and keep them healthy. So I'm going to go through some of the effects of eating bats. So eating bats can make you sick for reasons including that their diet leads them to contain a lot of neurotoxin. From what I found, there are seeds that bats eat that cause them to store a lot of this neurotoxin, and people eating bats can lead to neurological disorders that are similar to things like Parkinson's disease and ALS. And also, there are some deadly viruses that bats have some immunity to that people do not. So things like rabies, Ebola, and other deadly viruses can be passed to people from bats. And it's amazing because the Israelites would not have known this. Germs and the spread of disease were not discovered for centuries after this scripture was written. I did some research and found out that Moses and his writings in the first 5 books of the Bible would have been written around 1450 BC, which is about 3,400 years ago to 3,500 years ago. And the first microscope wasn't invented until 1590. Germ theory wasn't seriously established until the 1800s. 1881 is the year that I found. And one of those specific viruses that I had mentioned, the Ebola virus, wasn't discovered until 1976. So there's no way that the Israelites could have come up with this on their own, or double checked God of, oh, well, let's use our equipment and our bacteria knowledge to figure out, what can we eat and what can't we eat, because the knowledge simply didn't exist. They had to trust God and trust that there was a reason. I imagine there were times where some of the Israelites are like, I really want to eat that pig. Is it really that much different from a cow? Why can't we eat it? But they had to trust in God that there was a reason for, no, I said not to do this, and there is a reason for that. And they would have been rewarded for trusting in God by having good health and not being plagued by these illnesses and these viruses. And as a side note, this is an example of scientific knowledge in the Bible that there's no way that the people in biblical times could have come up with this on their own. So that's a very interesting field to study of scientific foreknowledge in the Bible. People make a lot of videos about those topics. So that's an example of why we should trust God. And I'm going to give another example about what happens when we do trust God. So a lot of us know the story about Job, of how he suffered greatly, about how the devil was allowed to take a lot from him and put a lot of plagues on him, and it was to test Job's faith. And it was really a humbling experience for Job, and he ended up keeping his faith in God. And I'm going to read some scripture about what happened when Job did trust in God, rather. So that is in Job chapter 42, verse 10, and it says, "And the Lord turned the captivity of Job when he prayed for his friends. Also the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before." So we learn that due to Job's faith in God and staying faithful and trusting in God, he was rewarded in the end. And so the big takeaways from this discussion is that we should always trust God. God knows everything, and he won't lead us in astray, and he also won't give us something that we shouldn't have. So if you're ever going through a tough time, remember that God is maybe protecting you from something, about not letting you have this or that. And we should allow trials to teach us something, and to be a time where we can exercise our trust in God and really strengthen that. So that wraps up the discussion for this video. I did some scientific research for this, for the food restrictions part. So I'm going to put the sources in the description if you want to check those out. Very interesting reads. If anybody has an idea for a video topic, whether it be along with the Bible videos or my one-handed videos, let me know in the comment section below, and I might make a video on it.